Human-operated ransomware, it isn't just some automated bug. It's a crime scene. There's a real person sitting behind the keyboard making moves. So for this explainer, we're going to put on our detective hats. We're treating this whole thing like a digital investigation, following the clues to piece together exactly how these attackers operate.
And this is usually where the story begins, with absolute chaos. A company's entire network is just paralyzed. Every important file is locked up tight, encrypted, and basically held for ransom. At this point, yeah, the attackers have already won this battle. But for the investigators, well, their work is just getting started. They've got to figure out what in the world just happened.
And that really is the central mystery, isn't it? How does one person, or maybe a small group, manage to cause so much damage so quickly? We're not talking about just one computer getting hacked. We're talking about the entire system going down. To find the answer, we have to follow the trail of digital breadcrumbs they leave behind.
Okay, let's open our first case file. This one involves a super common tactic, abusing something called the Remote Desktop Protocol, or RDP. The easiest way to think about this? It's like the attackers found a digital door that was just left unlocked. They just waltz right in and start launching their attack by hand from inside the network.
Now, what's really interesting is that the investigation doesn't start at the beginning. No, it actually starts at the end of the attack. Detectives dive into the file system and they can pinpoint the exact moment those ransom notes, the files named how_to_decrypt, appeared. That timestamp becomes their ground zero, a crucial starting point to work backward from.
So they wind the clock back just a few minutes from that timestamp, and bam, they find a clue in the system logs. It's something called a prefetch file, which is basically just the computer's little memory of programs that ran recently. And sitting in there is a really weird program, pfu.cri_hand.exe. That name is unusual, and the timing is a massive red flag. This has gotta be our weapon.
And this is the part where we can prove a human was at the controls. There are these other system logs called user assist, and they track every program a specific user runs. Well, guess what shows up? Our suspect, that .cr_hand.exe file, was executed manually. They also ran other tools to scout the network first. This was a hands-on job, no doubt about it.
Now, you'd think the attacker would just delete the malware file to cover their tracks, right? And they usually do. But here's the thing. It's never really gone. The system cache remembers it. And more importantly, it remembers the file's unique digital fingerprint, its SHA-1 hash. It's a perfect analogy. This is like recovering DNA from a crime scene.
So with this digital DNA in hand, investigators can run a search on a public database like VirusTotal. And boom, a match. Dozens of security vendors identify this exact fingerprint as Krylock ransomware. We now have a name for our culprit. The weapon has been identified.
Okay, so we know the weapon, but how did the attacker get in to use it? Going back to our timeline, the Windows event logs have the answer. Clear as day, there's a successful RDP login from an external IP address just moments before the ransomware was executed. That was the unlocked door. The attacker logged in remotely and manually unleashed Krylock. And just like that, case 1 is solved.
But not all attackers are so hands-on. Our next case file examines a much stealthier approach where attackers hijack the network's own administrative tools to do their dirty work. This is less like kicking in a door and a lot more like an inside job.
Right away, the key piece of evidence is completely different. Instead of user activity, investigators find an event log with the ID 7045. All that means is a service was installed in the system. And looking at the details, we see a new service was created to run a suspicious file from a central server, the domain controller.
In this case, we don't have a file hash to work with right away. So where do we look next? Believe it or not, the ransom note itself. Attackers need to tell their victims how to pay, and in doing so, they often leave behind unique identifiers. Here, we see some very specific web links.
And this is where a little open-source intelligence goes a long way. A simple web search for that URL instantly brings up results connecting it to the notorious Revil ransomware gang. The attackers pretty much identified themselves through their own instructions.
So let's just pause and compare. In the first case, the key clue was the user assist logs, proving a human manually ran the program. In this second case, the smoking gun is an automated event, a remote service creation, that ID 7045. Two different methods, leaving two very different forensic trails.
Our third and final case file covers the most sophisticated technique yet, weaponizing group policy. So if RDP is an unlocked door and admin shares are an inside job, this is like rewriting the company's digital rulebook to command every single computer to infect itself.
Now, before we dig into the clues, let's quickly define what a Group Policy Object, or GPO, even is. Essentially, it's the central command center for a Windows network. A GPO can dictate everything from what your desktop background looks like to, more importantly, which programs automatically run. It is incredibly powerful.
And the evidence here follows a familiar pattern. Working backward from the encryption event, investigators find a brand new group policy object created right before the attack. They even find a suspicious executable tucked away inside its scripts folder.
And this is a perfect illustration of a two-punch attack. The GPO's configuration files reveal the plan. First, a rule instructs every computer to copy the malware from a central server. Second, another rule creates a task to execute that malware. It's an elegant and devastatingly effective distribution system.
Once again, we turn to the malware's digital fingerprint. By grabbing the hash of that suspicious file and running it through VirusTotal, we get a clear identification. This is Lockbit ransomware, a strain that is famous for having this exact automated GPO deployment capability built right in.
And here comes the final blow. To make sure the attack happens immediately, the attackers don't wait around. They use a PowerShell command to force every single machine on the network to update its group policy right now. In an instant, the entire company is compromised.
So, we've dissected 3 different attacks. Each one used a distinct method, a different play from the attacker's playbook, but they all ended with the same catastrophic result: total network encryption. So let's just recap. The RDP attack left clues of manual execution in user logs, which led us to Krylock. The admin share attack used remote service creation, and the ransom note itself pointed us to Reveal. And finally, the group policy attack left behind malicious GPO files, the signature of Lockbit. Each vector leaves a unique forensic fingerprint.
Which brings us to a final, crucial point. We've seen how cyber detectives can reconstruct an attack by following the evidence. But understanding this playbook isn't just about solving a crime after the fact. It's about proactive defense. By monitoring for these specific forensic clues, unusual RDP logins, suspicious service creations, or unauthorized GPO changes, organizations can spot an attacker's first moves and stop the next attack before the final command is ever given.